So I'm here with my new friend, Reese Zahner, and her pen name is Cleo Childs. She has written extensively on the subject of grief in her poetry, and it is just powerful. I've really, really loved your poetry. It resonates with me, and I know I mentioned that one thing I like about it is it doesn't rely on sensationalism or evocative type, you know, words. It's just so crisp and clean and powerful. And I wanted to share that on my podcast. And thank you for so graciously allowing us to share these selected poems of yours. Could you just give a little background about how this process happens for you and how you came to become a poet?
Sure. So poetry chose me. It's not a medium that I went out and I found. It's the only medium that made sense for my writing. So my process is typically I feel something in my body. It's a feeling, and my goal is to try to figure out how to put that feeling truthfully and honestly into words. And the way that it made sense for me to do that is through poetry. And for me, when I was writing this album and I'm editing a book, when I'm the poems that are in the book too, it's auditory. I hear what I'm supposed to say and then I write them down. So it's very auditory for me. And I go and I synthesize I try to explain what my emotions are in a way that I feel like is truthful and honest to them. And then I have 3 amazing editors. I think editing is incredibly important. So I have my maternal grandmother, Gigi. So my mom's mom, she's 93. She's one of my editors. She was my first ever editor. She's been my editor since I was 18, writing research papers in college. Then I have Cherie from Global Songwriting. She helps me make sure that the story makes sense and that the format is correct and, goes through every word. We go through every word and see, is it, the perfect word, or does it make sense here? Or how can I make the rhyming scheme work and make it consistent across the entire poem? And then finally, I have Mary. Mary Gaucher she's a Grammy nominated songwriter who is amazing. And I found her and she is my truth editor. So we go through every single line to make sure it is honest and truthful to the experience that I was feeling in my body at that time. The reason why I think it's so important to have a truth editor is because in grief, I never wanted to lie to someone that was in grief, because they have I have it, and I think people in grief have it too. They have like a newfound ability to be able to spot falsities. Mm-hmm. And they can tell if something is false and they will shut off and they say that's not accurate. So for me, it was really important to make sure that I had a truth editor. So for example, there was in one poem I wrote, that's why I knew I wanted to work with Mary in our first session. I said from my mother's perspective, and she said, to this martyr's horror. And I was very pleased with that martyr horror. I was very pleased. And Mary goes, would your mother consider herself a martyr? And I said, no, she would not. So we removed it. It was martyr horror. It sounds great when you say it, but it's not truthful. So we removed it. And so we do that with every single poem. Or she goes, hey, you need something a little bit here. Can you clarify it here? So there's a huge editing process that goes behind writing these poems and making sure that they're truthful and honest to the experience. Making sure that the North Star for them is honesty and integrity and authenticity. That is what we're trying to achieve in them. And it's more important, I think, to be honest and to be truthful to one experience than it is to, be correct in the words of literature, or be smart, or to go in and to try to pretend to be, so smart. Like I could, throwing in big words for the sake of throwing in big words, because are they honest, accurate words? That's the most important thing. So we have a very extensive editing process, and then we go through and we make sure that it flows together in the way that's accurate through the experience. And we talk, and like with the book, you'll see when it comes out, I'm editing it right now, is it expands on the process of what it was like to lose my mother, what it was like to go through of, I wrote a poem about being in the lawyer's office and like the viewing, and then going through and expanding on what it was like to lose her and then come out of isolation, what that kind of felt like. And so it needs a Mary seal of approval, and then we can, continue on with it. But it's important to me. I had 14 poems on the album tracks, and I could synthesize down my journey, and I wanted to make it flow like a river, which is how I feel like my grief flows. Like it's not linear. It's can be swirling and go backwards and forwards and everything. But the book is going to extrapolate and expand on the river and show those other emotions and those other experiences. Like in the podcast, we talked about how my husband and really started to annoy me, and how
Right.
my relationship suffered. So that's in the book. Candidly, there was, I became slightly dependent on alcohol, right? Because I was trying to numb myself. That's in the book, right? What are these experiences that are, personal to me, but probably maybe not unique to me, that no one talks about? And how can I be able to allow people to feel more understood and seen and not feel so alone in their experience by explaining and extrapolating on mine?
Well, that must be why it resonates so well with me, because of that integrity piece, that honesty piece. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you again. Thank you for making it available. Thank you for sharing it with us. Does your book have a name?
It's currently moving with the expanded edition. I don't think it's going to stick. It's currently moving with book. So
Okay.
I've been working on like the content of it, so much so that I think I'll come up with a, some kind of fancy name, but it'll be on the or the website at some point.
Okay.
But
And so again, it's Reese Zahner, and
mhm.
your pen name is Cleo Childs. And so how do people find your work if they want to find it?
It's on cleochilds.com, which is so much easier to spell than reesezahner.com. You're welcome. That was a kindness. Um, Cleo Childs, it's CleoChilds.com. I put the album everywhere on all the platforms, but I have it linked specifically from YouTube and Spotify from the front page. You can go and look at pictures of my mom too if you wanted to see what she looked
Oh,
like. So I have pictures up there. Listen to
fantastic.
podcasts, read the poems if you're more visual than auditory. And then, yeah, and then I'll have, the book whenever I am finished editing it, and I have it. I'm hoping to have it by the end of the year, but life has this way of lifing. And
Yes,
life,
please.
we'll see if life, wants to go and to play along, or if life has some other plans. But eventually I will have a book, because I really want to be able to put it out there so that people can be able to maybe not feel so alone in other experiences that I went through if they're going through something similar, and at least know that someone else understands.
Absolutely. Keep me posted. Let me know. Let
Yeah.
me know when you publish. And again, what's the name of the album?
Moving with, because there is
Okay.
no moving on, there's just
Okay.
moving with.
Moving with. All
Moving
right.
with.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I hope those listening enjoy these poems as much as I have. Thank you again, Reese.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Good Grief Believer podcast. I believe we grieve better when we share our experiences with others. And I am always eager to hear from other people about their unique grief journey. Please contact me if you would be willing to share your perspective with me as a guest on the Good Grief Believer podcast by emailing me at goodgriefbeliever@gmail.com. That's GOODGRIEFBELIEVER @gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you soon.